Hello students, welcome to grade 12 biology. Today we are going to see lesson 5, which is about example of behaviors patterns, and lastly we are going to see adaptations of studying behavior. But before we go directly to today's lesson, let us recap and see the main points that we have seen in the previous lesson. In the previous lesson, we have seen operant conditioning, and we have also seen insight learning and imprinting, which are examples of learned behavior. Today we are going to see examples of behavior pattern and application of studying behavior. Let's see the first example of pattern, which is courtship behavior. Can you try and define what courtship is? Well then, courtship behavior refers to the complex set of actions and signals that animals use to attract and secure a mate. This is known as courtship. So organisms, there is a set of complex actions and signals that animals usually use to attract their opposite sex that secure a mate. These behaviors are essential for obviously reproduction, because a mate is for reproduction and are often species specific, because the species are organisms, closely related organisms that can give offspring, ensuring that individuals mate with others of their own kind, their own species. So a species to species relationship is known as courtship. So courtship can involve visual displays, vocalization, chemical signals, physical gestures, and sometimes it also serves to communicate fitness and readiness to mate and compatibility. There could be compatibility. And now let's see these major key elements in courtship behavior. One is visual display. Many animals use vibrant colors to receive the sight of the mate, opposite sex, patterns and specific movements to attract other mates. For example, peacock displays their elaborate tail feather, which is very important to attract the other mate. Birds of paradise perform intricate dances to attract mate. These are examples of visual display. And second is vocalization, or producing a sound, plays a critical role in courtship for many species of animals, particularly birds, frogs, and whales. These produce different types of sounds. For example, male songbird sing to establish a territory and attract females. This is a kind of attracting mate, and frogs croak to communicate their presence to potential mate. This is a kind of vocalization, is a kind of courtship behavior, a kind of behavior to attract a mate. The other is chemical signal. Pheromones are chemical signals used by many animals to attract their mates. For example, moths release pheromones, which are chemicals detectable for miles away to attract their mates. And mammals such as dogs use scent marking to indicate reproductive status. They are in the reproductive status. They use marking, scent marking. The other is physical gesture. Certain species engage in tactile behavior, movement behavior. Penguins may present bubbles as a part of their courtship behavior. Spiders often perform intricate movements to avoid being mistaken for prey, and they attract their mate. Now let's proceed and see the second example of behavioral pattern, which is territorial behavior. We have seen courtship behavior. Now let's look at on territorial behavior. Students, it is your time to try what is meant by territorial behavior. Well done. Territorial behavior is an action and strategies animals use to establish and defend, maintain a specific area or territory. Territory is a specific area where animals live and they establish and defend this territory. That's known as territorial behavior. A territory is a typically an area that provides access to vital resources such as food, shelter, and mates. So it's an area where these animals get their food, shelter, and their mate. And by controlling a territory, animals reduce competition, enhance their survival, and reproduce success. There are three advantages to why these animals go to territorial behavior. One is for reducing competition, and the other is enhancing survival. When there is no competition, then the probability of survival will increase and reproduction will be successful. And if the reproduction is successful again, the animals that are living in that area will become high in number. So this is a kind of behavior which is very important. Territorial animals usually defend their areas for a nest or for a den or mating site or for food and for themselves and for their young. For shelter, that's an example of shelter is a nest or a mating, or as we have said, food for themselves and for their young. So three main reasons. One is for shelter, food, and also for mate. These are why animals make their territorial behavior. Now let's see key features of territorial behavior. One is marking territory. Animals often use scent like dogs, sounds, or visual markers to delineate their boundaries. So they can make scent, they can make a sound or visual markers to make a boundary. For example, wolves and dogs mark their territory with urine. They use urination to make their territorial boundary or behavior. Birds sing to establish territorial boundaries. Some species of birds make a song and they make their territorial behavior. Ants use chemicals to make this kind of behavior, territorial behavior. So we can take an example of wolf, Ethiopian wolf. This is a social animal and live in hunt packs. As a result, they maintain a group. They make their territory by marking with urine, like dogs and others. So these wolves also they use urine, and as a result of these chemicals that is carried by this urine, they mark their territory. The other feature is defense of territory. Some animals they use defensive Once established, animal may engage in aggressive display, physical compact to defend their territory. Some animals physically defend their territory. And for example, lions, they roar and patrol their territory and see when there is another animals entering to this territory. Male lizards perform push-up display to intimidate rivals, and these are examples of defense territory. Now let's see functions of territorial behavior. One of the function of territorial behavior is to get access to resource such as shelter, food, and mate. This is one. The other is mating opportunity, species and individual fitness, because if animals make a territorial behavior, their reproductive and other species will be very high, and their fitness is species individual fitness will be sustained. And the other is reduction of intra-specific competition. Competition among species will be reduced because of this territory. Because in one territory, there is only one species, and the competition among different species will be minimized and reduced. And this is a result of and function of territorial behavior. And we have seen in birds and other mammals, robins defend their feeding territory by singing and chasing away. Male red-winged blackbird fiercely protects nesting areas. Mammals, tigers, and jaguars use scratch marks and scent to define patrol their territory. Meerkats work as a group to protect their shared territory, and they become as a group and they defend their territory. Now let's proceed and see the third example of behavioral pattern, that is social behavior. We have seen two examples of behavior, that is courtship behavior, and last three we have seen also, and this is the third social behavior. So social behavior is an interaction between individuals of the same species, and they encompass a wide range of cooperation, competition, and communicate actions. So types of social behavior, there are one of the type of social behavior is for cooperation, and it's known as cooperative social behavior. These are actions where individuals work together for mutual benefit. As the name indicates, cooperative social behavior is a kind of behavior which is for the benefit of both species, those organisms of the same species. For example, wolves hunting in a packs to take down larger prey, so they go by group so that they can take larger prey. Meerkats standing guard while others forage, other of the same species, other meerkats, when they are in a forage process, others will take the role of guard. The second type is competitive social behavior, rely for resources such as food, mates, and territory. Male deer engaging in antler battles during the mating season. Birds competing for nesting sites. These are a kind of social behavior whereby the organisms of the same species compete for such resources as, for example, for food, mates, and territory. And the third type of social behavior is altruistic behavior, acts where an individual sacrifices its own benefit to help others. The animal sacrifices its own benefit to the help other organisms of the same species. For example, worker bee foregoing reproduction to care for the queens offspring. So the queen's offspring will take an advantage. Vampire parts regurgitating blood to feed a starving colony. And the fourth is parental care. Behaviors aimed ensure survival of offspring. Birds feeding their chicks. This is one example of parental care. Mammals nursing and protecting their young. This is the character of a mammal. So they do have this parental care. The other is the communication. Exchanging information through vocalization, gesture, and chemical signal is a communication. Dolphins using clicks and whistles to coordinate group of activities. Ants using pheromones, chemicals to guide others to food source. And the other is dominance hierarchies, social ranking that dictates the access of resources. And mates, example, alpha males in lion prides or gorilla troops. Chickens establishing a pecking order. This is a kind of dominance hierarchy. Functions of social behavior. Social behavior is very advantageous for survival, for reproduction, resource sharing, learning and development, and also conflict resolution. Now let's proceed to the last slides of today's lesson, application of studying behavior. Studying behavior is insight into neuroscience, conservation, and human psychology. Neuroscience is a science of studying nervous system like structure, function, development, and genetics and biochemistry and pathology of nervous system. This is understanding how brain and nervous system influence behavior, cognition, emotion, and bodily function. So there is a relation between neuroscience and behavior. Behavior and conservation, understanding animal migration and breeding for specific protection. It's understanding behavior of animals will be useful and beneficial for species protection. The other is studying impact on neuroscience, studying behavior links with neural pathways and social responses. Human behavior insights, ethological studies, studying of behavior, influence understanding of aggression and cooperation. This will bring us to the end of today's lesson. Until we meet on the next lesson, goodbye.